Life and Times of John Pepper Clarke-Bekederemo, one of the pioneers of Nigerian modern literature. He was better known by his initials JP. His full name was John Pepper Clarke-Bekederemo, one of the pioneers of modern Nigerian literature who started out at the University College, now University of Ibadan, in the 1950s with the likes of Wole Soyinka, Chinua Achebe, and Christopher Okigbo. He was active in student politics, in the process of which he once got hit over the head with a bottle by a female fellow student for objecting to a motion that the vice presidency of the student union be reserved for a woman. He had to have stitches and for the rest of his life carried a scar over his left eye, but by his own admission called himself the awkward customer, telling it like it was. JP was the editor of The Horn, the hugely influential magazine which published all those who would later emerge into prominence. In 1961, he was also one of the co-founders of the Mbari Club for Writers and Artists in Ibadan, whose aims were to be a center where people could come and watch an art exhibition, listen to music, see an open-air drama performance, and use an Africana reference library. In the 8th year of its existence, it published JP's own Song of a Goat, his first play, 3 plays by Soyinka, and Okigbo's Heaven's Gate and Limits, all of which are now a collector's items. The verdict of many connoisseurs is that JP's poetry lost its elan, its magic, the vibrant potency of his early years from then onwards. Many see JP as a talent that never fully realized the promise of his early days, yet he leaves a big literary legacy. For many, he was Nigeria's unofficial poet laureate, defined as he was by his lyrical depth.
We are here to talk about the distinguished Nigerian writer J.P. Clarke, who had just passed away. He was seen as a leading figure among the triumvirate of early Nigerian writers, and the Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, Christopher Okigbo, and of course J.P. Clarke. J.P. Clarke started out as a precocious poet, highly talented. He had his 3 plays published: Song of a Goat, The Masquerade, and The Raft. Because he went on to publish Ozidi, and he had the Ozidi saga and the rest of it. So I have with me a distinguished panel here to look into his works, the achievements, the highlights, the controversies, and whatnot.
J.P. Clarke definitely doesn't have the same kind of recognition in the United States, I think, or in the West probably more broadly, as someone like Soyinka or as someone like Achebe. Speaking from experience, I first read Achebe. Things Fall Apart is probably the most famous work of Nigerian or maybe even African literature that kind of has household recognition in America. And from then I went on to read Soyinka, and nowadays, Adichie has really made a name for herself in the States as well. But I agree. I think J.P. Clarke doesn't maybe have the same kind of recognition.
I would probably say some of it has to do with his temperament. We're going to be short-tempered and will, take the steps others would take to cultivate the media. Soyinka would hardly refuse an interview, no matter how lowly the media organization is. Besides that, he really did, in other ways, make very strong practical contributions, particularly in theatre. He used to run the pet repertory theatre, which was based at Nikon, and some of the best Nigerian actors, were linked in that place. There's this guy, somebody called Felix Okolo. Here we are, products of pet repertory theatre. He was his own way of giving back, and he was quite effective, and for a long time that was the only place you could go and watch stage drama in Lagos and Nigeria, and it's sustained for a very long period.
Today you said he's your favorite Nigerian poet, and we have raised these issues that his early poetry was so good, but along the line, people felt that after the Civil War, his poetry really petered out. So what is your assessment of that?
Yeah, the best of his poetry I enjoyed the early ones. Particularly, I was intrigued by the way he and Soyinka delved into one subject, Abiku, I found his own much more accessible compared to Soyinka, and that's what I found was progressive with his literature. He was very lyrical, and very often he took very simple subjects you never really think about, and then raise them in a way that they become quite memorable. For instance, at that point, Stream-Side Exchange, and so on. But I do agree, I never read anything he wrote subsequently after the casualties, for instance, because any attempt I made, you never really yielded anything that looked interesting enough. So I never quite followed up. But I know I read the casualties, and somehow the casualties that really sensitized me to what the war did to a group of friends. Say for instance Chinua, Achebe, Okigbo, Wole Soyinka, and they were all the pioneer students in the University of Ibadan, who were the brothers of early Nigerian literature and English, and they were also all personal friends. It was quite striking how the war put them apart into different positions, and in the case of JP, I think the best that capacity he had, that lyrical capacity, was last probably expended in the work of casualties. Because after that volume, I never really found any of the work that interested me as much as very well. So I do agree that if you plot from a graph, you see him rise up to the peak by about 1970, and then you sink up.
Now, ethnic groups like Soyinka being Yoruba, Chinua being Igbo, and JP Clarke from the minorities as we have it and all that. And there is this idea like, okay, the Yoruba people will like back up Soyinka, and the Igbo will back up Achebe, and the minority man is like the minority. How do you think that affected JP Clarke, Mr. Jimon?
It affected JP Clarke in so many ways, because number one, he was neither Igbo or Yoruba, he was Ijo from Rogu. Even though he married a Yoruba woman, Clarke, he didn't get much traction like his other contemporaries did by way of publicity and everything. So, like in the media, for example, especially the print media, some of them or most of them are owned by people from Bengal State that time as a minority. But those in managerial positions, they were like they are more like Yorubas and things. So there was nobody willing to help him out, to promote him, as he did Achebe and Soyinka. That was something he suffered, my own estimation. And I understand he was also reclusive. I didn't want to reach much. He tried to keep to himself. Unlike Achebe, who, in the course of Nigerian history, he spoke his mind sometimes. He did turn down the price. Soyinka is known for his outspokenness, but JP was never like that. Maybe those things they didn't help him much.
It strikes me as interesting that with the publication of The Man Died and all the quarrel that JP Clarke and Soyinka had over an addendum to the book, where Soyinka said that an African writer, JP Clarke, was blazing through the wall, telling anti-Soyinka stories, that Soyinka was this and that even he would call people aside and say, you know that your friend is suffering from chronic syphilis. And it was the federal government that was keeping him alive and all that. So like, I know that Soyinka and Clarke were not on speaking terms for several years and all that. So here comes Adewale Majapias being hired, quote unquote, to do a biography of J.P. Clarke. And like you have said that another biography from Femi Oshofiso was also. But what I'm now saying is that eventually I found out that Wole Soyinka, who was not like at loggerheads with Clarke, now teamed up because I saw some of the things Soyinka said against your person as Adewale Majapias during Clarke's this thing, and Clarke was there. So like maybe my enemy's my enemy's enemy is my friend. So yeah, how does that place you?
Well, I think they kind of made up earlier, because over the
there's Mama Vasaha.
so they really made up this, and then of course you have to celebrate it now when the meeting is I found it it's difficult. You see, because I found it really unseemly what Soyinka is saying and doing. And I got the distinct impression that there was a point at which JP wanted to ditch the case after about 5 years, because there was about 18-month period when we heard nothing. I know and I was very passive. It was not our case. I mean, we dragged it to see, so we lost. But I got the distinct impression that he was no longer that interested.
It is also remarkable that it's the same J.P. Clarke who described Soyinka, according to Soyinka, as a perpetual dramatist who insists on playing the starring role in every drama of his own manufacture.
Very precise.
So, these may all be the factors at play, the personalities of the people involved, And JP didn't like the critical stuff he wrote, Soyinka didn't like the critical review he wrote, and then they found a common enemy and celebrated him.